It's draft week. One final mock draft Monday right here on the Locked On Eagles podcast. Plus, we get into Cam Jurgens' brand new contract extension coming up next right here on the Locked On Eagles podcast.
You are Locked On Eagles, your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
We thank you so much for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. Welcome in, Eagles fans, to this Monday edition of the show. It's brought to you by the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada. Stay tuned for the Armada Player of the Week later on in the show. One final mock draft Monday. The NFL Draft kicks off this Thursday for round 1, round 2 and 3 on Friday, rounds 4 through 7 on Saturday. The Philadelphia Eagles picking at number 32 overall. I doubt it's going to stay that way, though. Today's mock draft is going to be a predictive first-round mock, picks 1 through 32. I'll tell you officially my final prediction for what I think the Eagles are going to do on Thursday night. But before we get into that, some contract news. The final shoe to drop on the offensive side of the football. Center Cam Jurgens agreeing to a 4-year deal worth $68 million, 39 of which is fully guaranteed. Annual salary of $17 million puts Cam Jurgens as the second highest paid center in all of football. The Eagles now 4 of their starting 5 on the offensive line are getting paid top 6 contracts. So 1 through 6, 4 of 5 starters. The only guy is going to be Tyler Steen or Kenyon Green or a rookie starting right guard. The other 4 starters are getting top 6 money at their position, and the entire offense as a whole is getting top 10 money outside of, right now, the right guard position, and then if you consider Jahan Dotson a starter, the Eagles have 9 of 11 starters on offense getting paid top 10 money, which is incredible. But it just shows the historic rebuild. It represents one of the best rebuilds of a single unit in not just franchise history, but the history of the NFL. How Howie Roseman took an offense in 2020 that was just in the gutter, just ashes, nothing there, just bits and pieces of just what used to be an NFL offense. It was out there featuring, Travis Fulgham and at times Josh Adams throughout the years and Deontay Burnett and, Jamon Brown in 2020. Like, the offense was in shambles around Carson Wentz, and of course Carson Wentz was in shambles. And now, to go from where you were in 2020 to now what I think is one of the most complete historic offenses in the history of football, just 5 years later, and it's resulted in 2 Super Bowl appearances, 1 ring. It's one of the best rebuilds of a single unit of all time. And Cam Jurgens was that last shoe to drop, that final contract for Howie to lock up that core throughout 2027 and beyond. Again, 9 of 11 starters are now under contract through 2027 or further, and they're all around the same age. Like, this is just an incredible, masterful job of building an offense. Cam Jurgens, 4 years, $68 million, and I love that Howie continues to be proactive with contracts, as he should be, and not all teams are like that. Look at the Cincinnati Bengals. Look at the Dallas Cowboys. Right now, he's the second highest paid center in football, but he got ahead of it. He got ahead of the rookie contract. He gets to put some of that money, some of that cap into Cam Jurgens' final rookie season. Just the best move they could have made. And Cam Jurgens, I can't say enough how impressive his 2024 season was. To switch positions, to fill the shoes of an all-time legend in Jason Kelce. I think you can make the argument it's the best center in the history of football. First ballot Hall of Famer. One of the potential Eagles Mount Rushmore players that helped you win a Super Bowl in 2017. One of the best leaders, vocal leaders, lead by example guys of all time in the history of this sport. Then became a global star the year that you're playing next to him at right guard, and then you're supposed to replace him the following season. Those are massive, massive shoes to fill. And the fact that Cam Jurgens did it so seamlessly in a Super Bowl winning season where he was, I think, one of the most underrated players on that roster, it's unreal. And it shows, again, just how special these young players are that Howie Roseman has brought in since that 2020 season, that 2021 draft and beyond, the next 4 classes. There's just something different about these guys that Howie Roseman is bringing in, the maturity, the poise, the clutch gene, the versatility. That's Cam Jurgens. To be able to play right guard, which wasn't even his position in 2023, play it at a high level, and then switch over to center and fill those massive shoes, if not be an upgrade over Jason Kelce of 2023. Like, he was equally as good as Jason Kelce in 2023 in 2024. You didn't skip a beat. On the field, we didn't even think about Jason Kelce. There wasn't a moment last year where we said, wow, the Eagles could really use number 62 on the football field. And the fact that we didn't have to say that about a legend because of Cam Jurgens, that's why he's worth this money. And I'll never forget his toughness in the NFC Championship. Shouldn't have even been playing in that game with a back injury. Has to come in as an emergency because Landon Dickerson gets banged up as well. Grits through that game, doesn't allow pressure to Jalen Hurts, and then dominates the Super Bowl as a pass protector. I mean, what more can you say? 4 years, $68 million, $17 a year. I think is very well worth a player smack dab in the middle of his prime at such an important position. And it's not just Cam Jurgens, but the fact that the Eagles have not missed, you miss Fletcher Cox as a leader, as a player, because of how much he meant to us, because we were such a big fan of him. But the Eagles have not missed Fletcher Cox on the field because of Jalen Carter and then Milton Williams before he left, Jordan Davis, Moro Ijoma. The fact that Brandon Graham just retired, but you haven't really missed him as being a core piece of your defense for years that carried you because you have a guy like Nolan Smith breaking out. Or the fact that they have Quenya Mitchell now and Cooper DeJean to replace Darius Slay. This team has just seamlessly transitioned from all-time franchise stars so well, and that is not an easy task. There are franchises, not just in the NFL, but in all of sports, that sometimes take years to replace these kind of legends. Sometimes it takes a decade plus. And the Eagles just the following year are like, nope, we've got another guy waiting in the wings. And Cam Jurgens was that for Jason Kelce, and the Eagles made sure they locked him up, and he was really that final core piece that they, on offense, they knew they were going to have in 2027 and beyond. That's a bona fide star that just hadn't got that deal yet. Of course, we know about the situation with the right guard spot, wide receiver 3, tight end, even with Dallas Goedert's long-term questions, but right now he's, his annual salary was top 10 tight end money. So Cam Jurgens was that final shoe to drop we knew on offense. Now everybody that you see as a part of your long-term core is locked up. Now it's time to focus on the defense. I imagine they're going to switch the attention to Jordan Davis. Are they going to pick up the fifth-year option? Are they going to give him an extension now on top of that option to kind of even it out, spread that money around? Very curious to see what they do with Jordan Davis's contract. I think that's the next shoe to drop for Howie Roseman. But I think that'll probably come after the NFL draft, which is just 4 days away. I cannot wait. We are here. It's draft week. One final mock draft Monday for you right here on the Locked On Eagles podcast. A predictive first-round mock picks 1 through 32 coming your way right here on the Locked On Eagles podcast. This episode of the Locked On Eagles podcast is brought to you by Amazon Fire TV. Did you know that your Fire TV is actually also an Xbox? That's right. Turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices. No console required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe or sign in to Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to play. Dive into hundreds of premium titles from EA Sports College Football 25 to Call of Duty Black Ops 6. And Avowed, as easily as you stream your favorite shows, it's gaming made simple, and it's all on your Fire TV. And I grew up playing video games. I was a PlayStation guy. I was an Xbox guy, GameCube, Wii, Nintendo DS, you name it. The fact that you can now just take this device on the go is incredible, whether it's for your kids or for you. Head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required. Available on select devices including Fire TV Stick 4K 2nd Gen, Fire TV Stick 4K Max 1st and 2nd Gen, and Fire TV Cube 3rd Generation. Thanks as always for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. One final mock draft Monday for the 2025 offseason. Thanks as always for tuning in to another year of mock drafts. What is this, year 8 now for me? Incredible. Yep, year 8 of Mock Draft Monday right here on the Locked On Eagles podcast. And as we like to do every final mock during draft week, we like to do a predictive first round mock draft. So picks 1 through 32. This is not what I think each team should do. This is what I think is going to go down on Thursday. And you guys all know, mock drafts, it's very hard to be predictive with mocks. You'd like to do it to prepare for all scenarios, see what happens if you take this position instead of this one, what happens if this guy falls, what happens if you trade up, you trade down. But doing mock drafts for the sake of trying to be right, I think is kind of a lost cause if you care about your hit percentage. But you still got to try it. You got to try your best, see how many picks you can get right. I'm normally happy if I normally average, I would say 5 to 7 right. That's normally 7 is my hit. If I can get 7 right, and that's still hard, it's still difficult, but if I can get 7 right in a mock draft year after year, I'm pretty happy with that hit percentage because, again, you just never know, and there's always surprise picks, there's always trades. You try to project that kind of stuff, but when you're not inside the building of these NFL teams, everybody's board is different. You just never know what you're going to get. But let's try to be as correct as we can for our final mock draft Monday. We'll start with the first overall pick, held by the Tennessee Titans, and it's Miami quarterback Cam Ward. They get their new franchise quarterback. I love Cam Ward. I know it's a weak quarterback class. Some might see him just as the best of a bad situation. I think Cam Ward in other years would still be one of my favorite quarterbacks. I love quarterbacks like that can play off platform, that are mobile, but it's for the sake of opening up the passing game. Just such a strong arm, natural leadership, good pocket presence. Isn't Lamar Jackson from a mobility standpoint, but he can extend plays. I think the Titans are getting a good one with their first overall pick. And, he's mentioning now he thinks Calvin Ridley is a better receiver than A.J. Brown. He's totally pandering to the Titans, saying Tony Pollard's like a top 5, top 10 running back. He knows he's going to be a Titan. They didn't even meet with Shedeur Sanders or work him out at the end of the process. Just for the sake of saving a formality type of meeting, we all know Cam Ward's going first overall. I would say the top 4 picks are chalk. I think we know in some order, one way or another, these 4 prospects are going to go off the board. It's Cam Ward, Travis Hunter, I would say Abdul Carter, of course, and then Will Campbell. I think those 4 guys are certainly going in the top 4. Maybe Will Campbell could fall of the 4, but I think he's going to end up going inside that top 4. After that, that's when the draft really starts. The Jaguars on the clock with that 5th overall pick. That's when things can get kind of haywire, and that's when I think you're going to start missing on picks. But for the 2nd overall pick, I'm feeling pretty confident in this one that it's not going to be Abdul Carter for the Browns. It's going to be Colorado receiver / defensive back Travis Hunter. And I think Abdul Carter across from Myles Garrett would be a tempting pick for the Browns. But I think Stefanski's going to fall in love with the idea of Travis Hunter on that offense. I think he can be a Devontae Smith type of receiver, if not better, at the next level. Maybe they want to use him at cornerback as well. He's a blue chip prospect. He's a generational kind of talent. And it sounds like the Browns like Travis Hunter more than Abdul Carter, and I think they're going to try to get Shedeur Sanders as well. I think the Browns' plan for day 1 on Thursday, they want to come away with the Colorado duo, Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter, but I don't think they see Sanders as worth that 2nd pick. They're going to take Hunter with the 2nd overall selection and then maybe try to trade back in for Sanders. And then I think it's chalk for the Giants at 3. I know they worked out Shedeur Sanders last week. Maybe the owner, maybe Mara's making a last-second push for them to go quarterback. But you can't pass up Abdul Carter, one of the best pass rushers to come out of a class in years. You add him to Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau on the edge and bring back an old-school Giants NASCAR-like package. I mean, I think that's an obvious pick for the Giants. And then maybe try to trade back in for Sanders, Jackson Dart, or Jalen Milroe. I think that makes more sense than just staying and picking Sanders. I just don't think Sanders is worth that 3rd overall selection. So I think that's chalk. Cam Ward at 1, Travis Hunter at 2, Abdul Carter at 3, and then I'd say Will Campbell at 4 to the Patriots. Will Campbell, I think, is a high floor. He's a really good pass protector, and in the NFL, that's what teams prioritize in linemen. I think he's a good leader. Again, I think he's a safe pick for New England, and that's what they need. They need to protect Drake May. But for me, the arm length is definitely a concern. I wonder if he does project more as a high-end guard at the next level. Armin Membu from Missouri, I would even say Josh Simmons and Kelvin Banks from Ohio State and Texas have better traits, have better upside than Will Campbell. But I think Mike Vrabel is going to really like Campbell. He's going to like that floor, and the Patriots need safe, productive starters, especially at a position that's so important, like left tackle, protecting your franchise quarterback in Drake May. And then worst case, yeah, you don't want to take a guard with the 4th overall pick, but worst case, I think is Will Campbell is a very, very good guard in the NFL. And maybe he proves the arm length isn't of concern, and maybe he does get the job done at left tackle. We'll see. But I think those 4 picks are obvious. And then here's when it gets a little bit crazier. So the Jaguars, the popular pick is Mason Graham, the defensive tackle out of Michigan. I'm going Ashton Genty. The Jacksonville Jaguars need to win. They need to win right now. They need to support Trevor Lawrence. They need to take the pressure off of Trevor Lawrence's shoulders. They may have seen what Saquon Barkley did for Jalen Hurts' efficiency in 2024. Genty is a sure thing, I think, high-floor prospect, a blue-chip player that can help carry that offense. Cohen's the head coach. He's an offensive mind, probably wants another weapon. I don't know if Etienne's future is in Jacksonville for more than another year or two. I think Genty is actually going to be the pick at number 5 after seeing what the Eagles did in a championship run. And a lot of teams who added good running backs made the playoffs. I don't think it's worth it for Jacksonville. They are not a running back away, so this would be a waste of an asset. But again, this is predictive. I think the Jaguars go Genty. And then, doesn't this pick just make all the sense in the world? Mason Graham to the Raiders at number 6. I think the Raiders would be a little bummed that they don't get Genty. I feel like Genty just makes so much sense as a Raider. But so does Mason Graham. Just a hard-working, high-motor, not a traitsy defensive tackle, but a guy that's always going to get to the quarterback. So technically sound. A former wrestler. You just can't beat him low. Mason Graham feels like a Raider. You add him to the defensive line with Max Crosby and Malcolm Kuntz, and the Raiders try to build that front 7. Maybe Tyree Wilson bounces back on the edge. I think the Raiders are going to try to really build up that defensive line if they can't get Genty. That's the strength of this class. Mason Graham is that, I think, final prospect. There's 5 to 6 prospects that are, I think, sure thing studs at the NFL level, and then it gets high variance time. Then who knows? Like high floor, or I'd say high ceiling, low floor, not a lot of sure bet blue chip prospects. This is when it gets interesting. Number 7, the New York Jets. I'm going Tyler Warren, the Penn State tight end. Tyler Warren is a really good run after the catch tight end. He is a big body, can high point the football, more of a Rob Gronkowski type when it comes to ceiling than like a Travis Kelce or a Brock Bowers. But I think the Jets want to really give Justin Fields an actual chance to be the guy there. You got Garrett Wilson. They need another passing target for Fields. If they're going to run the ball a lot, use the RPO game, play action, get Justin Fields a middle-of-the-field target, a safety blanket like Tyler Warren that can help create explosive plays in many different ways. I think that would make a lot of sense for the Jets at number 7. Then number 8, the Panthers. They need some pass rush help on the edge. Jalen Walker. They desperately need pass rushers. They missed out on Milton Williams. They added Terrence. Can't remember the guy's name from the Chiefs, the defensive tackle, but you know who I'm talking about. They added some interior pass rush help. They need edge rushers. I think teams are going to really like Jalen Walker's explosiveness, his leadership. I think he's the pick at 8. Then number 9, the Saints get their franchise quarterback. Derek Carr out for the year. Kellen Moore, I think, is going to want a mobile quarterback like Jalen Hurts, like when he coached Dak Prescott and Justin Herbert. I actually think this is when we get that Bo Nix or Michael Penix Jr. type of draft pick. The Saints shock the world. They take Jackson Dart over Shadur Sanders with the 9th overall selection. Then at pick 10, I think the Bears come away with a steal here. Missouri tackle Armin Membu. I think supporting Caleb Williams better in year 2 is priority number 1 for Chicago. This is when the run on trenches goes. I think right outside the top 10. Membo goes to the Bears. I think Mikael Williams from Georgia, and I hate it because I'd love if he fell within trade-up range for the Eagles. I think he goes to San Francisco at number 11. The 49ers need reinforcements at many positions, including the defensive line. And I think more pass rushers continue to fall. At number 12, edge rusher from Texas A&M, Shamar Stewart. I don't think he's worth the risk with the 12th overall pick, but I just feel like Jerry Jones. This just feels like a Jerry Jones pick. They need edge rusher help opposite Micah Parsons. I think this is when, again, the trenches start to go. Membo, of course, like we have, 3 pass rushers in the last 4 picks. Jalen Walker. We've got Membo on the offensive line, Mikael Williams, Shamar Stewart. And then that trend continues. 13th overall. The Miami Dolphins take Texas offensive tackle Kelvin Banks. Armstead retired. Tua needs protection badly. Kelvin Banks, that's a guy you build in a lab to be an offensive lineman. Like the physique, the traits, the length, the power, the size. That is a tackle at the next level. And then the Colts. The Colts at 14, they got to make this work with Anthony Richardson. They got to give him the best chance to hold off Daniel Jones. How do you do that? Get him a safety blanket like Justin Fields getting Tyler Warren with the Jets. The Colts get Anthony Richardson, Colston Loveland, one of the most complete players in this draft. Great hands, really good route runner for a tight end. I think the Colts are definitely going to target one of those top 2 tight ends in this class between Warren and Loveland. 2 more picks before we take a break to get to 16 halfway through this mock draft. Another Michigan man coming off the board, back-to-back picks, the Atlanta Falcons, who just refuse to take edge rushers in the first round. Even though they need them, they go corner. Opposite A.J. Terrell, they need help. They go with, I think, the best pure corner that's not Travis Hunter in this class, Michigan corner, Will Johnson. Final pick here in segment 2, number 16 overall, the Arizona Cardinals select Arizona wide receiver Tatora McMillan. Arizona keeps their guy from the University of Arizona. Now he just goes down the street to the Arizona Cardinals. It's a make-or-break year for Kyler Murray. You added Marvin Harrison Jr. last year. You extended Trey McBride this offseason. Add that third piece of the puzzle. Give Kyler every opportunity to be the guy this year. They were knocking on the door last year to win the NFC West. I think adding Tet some size to complement the completeness of Marvin Harrison and Trey McBride, I think would make a lot of sense for the Cards. So there's picks 1 through 16 in our first round predictive mock right here on Mock Draft Monday. Coming up next, picks 17 through 32. What are the Eagles going to do in the first round? We'll get into it next segment right here on the Locked On Eagles podcast. This episode of the Locked On Eagles podcast, Mock Draft Monday, is brought to you by Nissan. The Armada Player of the Week is brought to you by our friends at Nissan and the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada. Each week, we're taking a look at our draft prospects to pick one guy that stands apart, the guy we believe showcases the strength and power needed to push the Eagles forward as we look ahead to the draft and the 2025 season. This week's Armada and clear-cut Player of the Week is Jihad Campbell, the Alabama linebacker that I don't feel like we're talking about enough. I think he's a really interesting, versatile piece. If you miss out on Jalen Walker from Georgia and you want that edge rusher, stand-up linebacker kind of Swiss Army knife, I know there's an injury there with the labrum, but Jihad Campbell, if you get him between that pick 20 to 32 range, I think it would make all the sense of the world. He's heavy-duty, rugged, conquers the road with capability and confidence, dream big or go big, and that's what the Nissan Armada does as well. They say go forth and conquer. That's exactly what I think Jihad Campbell will do at the next level as well. It's clear that our Player of the Week, Jihad Campbell, is out there ready to conquer the road ahead with confidence, just like you can in the all-new Nissan Armada or any of their outstanding vehicles. Take the Nissan Armada, Rogue, or Pathfinder and go find your next big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com today. Thanks so much for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. One final Mock Draft Monday for the 2025 season, a predictive mock. Picks 1 through 32. We did picks 1 through 16, segment 2. Now 17 through 32 to wrap up the show. Where are the Eagles going to pick? Spoiler, it's not at number 32. They're going to make a move here, and I'll tell you what they're going to do in just a bit. But let's keep going. Number 17, the Cincinnati Bengals are on the clock. Trey Hendrickson, don't think he's for long with the Bengals, even if he plays one more year. He's not getting that extension, I think, in Cincinnati. They need pass rushing help. I thought about going Walter Nolan here, but I think the Bengals need a guy right away that can get to the quarterback. I have them going Boston College edge rusher Donovan Ezereku. They really need help on the edge. Even if Hendrickson is there, like they need another guy. He's a high floor player, productive, 17 sacks last year. Always comes in with a plan at the line of scrimmage of how he's going to get to the quarterback. I think he's maybe outside of Abdul Carter. After him, the safest pass rusher in this class, it's either him or Mikael Williams, if you ask me. I just think you know what you're going to get in Ezereku, and I like him there at 17. At pick 18, Josh Simmons, the Ohio State tackle, is going to go to the Seattle Seahawks. Seattle has to protect Sam Darnold better than they did Geno Smith. Seattle has been at the bottom of the league in pass protection metrics for years now, and Sam Darnold, we know how bad pressure messed him up with the Jets. They need to keep him upright to give him a chance in Seattle to be the franchise quarterback. Josh Simmons, I think, might be the most talented tackle in this class. If it wasn't for the injury last year, he'd be a top 10 pick. It does sound like from the medicals, his knee checks out. I do still think he dips a little bit in the first round. He's still a top 20 pick. I think he falls to 18, and I think Seattle will run to the podium if he's available. And then, number 19, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They need secondary help. I have them going with a Swiss Army knife in Texas defensive back Jahdae Barron. If they want to use him on the outside at corner, that's fine. They can use him at corner. That's where he played mostly with the Longhorns. If they want to use him in the slot, I think that's where he projects better at the next level. If they want to use him as a matchup type player, a safety even, to go along with Antoine Winfield, I think Barron could be that guy. I thought about Malachi Starks here, Nick Emenwari, but I think Jahdae Barron's going to go ahead of those two. I like the fit with Tampa Bay. I think they'll use him in a creative way, kind of like the Eagles are using with Cooper DeJean, Brian Branch in Detroit. Those nickel overhang players in the defensive backfield are so important in the NFL now, and I think Jahdae Barron is that guy. All right, let's keep it rolling. Let's get inside pick 20 through 32. The 20th overall selection. The Denver Broncos are taking a receiver to add more weapons for Bo Nix. Ohio State receiver Emeka Egbuka. Egbuka just knows how to get open. He's going to be an inline receiver that's a good blocker, makes plays over the middle, tough hands on third down. I don't think he's going to be a true number one at the next level, but I think he could be like a Puka Nacua or a Cooper Kupp, and I guess those guys were true number ones. But if you want like a true number one outside receiver that's going to play the X, I don't think that's him. But again, slot corners, slot receivers, they are so valuable in the modern day NFL. I think Sean Payton's going to like him a lot to complement Cortland Sutton. I think Bo Nix needs more weapons in 2025. All right, I told you the Eagles are going to make a move. Here we go. The Eagles have traded up from the 32nd overall selection to pick 21 to get their guy. The prospect that makes more sense than anybody in this draft for Howie Roseman and for the Eagles. It's defensive tackle from Ole Miss, Walter Nolan. I've come to terms with James Pierce is my guy, but I think Walter Nolan is their guy. And by the way, he did have a top 30 visit with the Eagles at the end of last week, so they're doing their due diligence. He's a pass rushing specialist. They want that to replace Milton Williams. He's explosive. Listen to this stat, actually. I saw this on X the other day. So there is only, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 11 defensive tackles since 2018 heading into a draft have had a 10% career run stop and pass rush win rate. Since 2018, there's only 12 guys that have had those numbers. Walter Nolan is one of those guys. There's actually a couple in this class, Mason Graham as well, and an underrated prospect, Omar Norman Lott, who I like a lot from the Tennessee Titans, Tennessee University, I should say. No pun intended there with Lott. Walter Nolan makes a lot of sense, gets to the quarterback. If the off-the-field stuff check out, and if they take him, that tells me they're confident in it. If that checks out, I think he's a perfect player for Vic Fangio's defense to replace Milton Williams. You rotate him and Moro Ijoma together and Jordan Davis next to Jalen Carter. That's a scary, young defensive tackle group of 4 or 5 guys. So the Eagles trade up from 32 to 21, 11 spots up the board to go get their guy in Walter Nolan. I would take James Pierce here, but I think the Eagles would take Walter Nolan. And again, this mock draft is predictive. All right, let's roll through 22 through 32. Michigan man, Jim Harbaugh gets another Michigan man in Kenneth Grant on the interior for run stopping. I think number 23, the Packers love to bet on traits on the edge. So they're going to go Tennessee edge rusher. My guy, James Pierce, falls to 23. I think that is a steal for the Green Bay Packers. Another my guy, Georgia safety, Malachi Starks, is going to the Minnesota Vikings. Harrison Smith cannot play forever. Starks is a complete player that can do it all. I think Nick Emenwari has a higher ceiling at the safety position, but I think Malachi Starks is a player that can come in and start right away. Really good ball skills. Starks is going to go 24 to Minnesota. And then I think the best true guard in the class comes off the board here at 25. Tyler Booker from Alabama goes to the Houston Texans. I really do think, he's not as versatile as some other pieces. I don't think he can project a tackle at this level. But I think naturally, as a true guard, left or right, he's the best guard in this class to protect C.J. Stroud. And then here's when it gets interesting for quarterback. Shedeur Sanders finally comes off the board. So Pittsburgh was the team that traded down with the Eagles at 21. Shedeur Sanders, the Cleveland Browns, they move up. They got Travis Hunter. They want to complete that Colorado duo. They move up to pick 26, making a trade with the Los Angeles Rams to get Shedeur Sanders. Sanders, Travis Hunter, that dynamic duo is going to get everybody to forget about Deshaun Watson. Stop thinking about him. Sanders and Hunter, for better or worse, are going to be in the headlines. Cleveland is going to be a spectacle with the Colorado duo of Sanders and Hunter. So they trade up. The Steelers trade down. I thought that could be an idea for Sanders, but they move down with the Eagles to get to 32. I think the Browns move up for their quarterback of the future in Shadur Sanders. Pick 27, Gray Zabel, North Dakota State. Guard, center, tackle, wherever you want to plug and play him, he's going to be a good player. Just feels like a Raven, right? And they can use some more offensive line help for Lamar Jackson. Pick 28, Nick Emenwari, finally off the board here. The safety from South Carolina goes to the Detroit Lions. One of the highest ceilings, I think, of any prospect in this class is Nick Emenwari. Pick 29, the Washington Commanders. Mike Green finally comes off the board. I really do think those off-the-field concerns are legitimate. And with so many other pass rushing options, I feel like teams are just going to prefer to go in another direction. I just don't know how you're really comfortable with all the allegations. And again, allegations are allegations. I don't like to speculate with that kind of stuff. The production is there for Mike Green, but I do think he falls down the board. And I think Washington, they take a chance on him at 29. 3 more picks here. Finally, Jihad Campbell, our Nissan Player of the Week, is off the board at 30 to the Buffalo Bills. The Bills need linebacker help. They could use some more pass rushers, a versatile piece for Sean McDermott's defense. I think Campbell has some legitimate traits to be potentially an all-pro player at the next level. All right, 2 final selections. The Chiefs. The Eagles exposed Kansas City in the Super Bowl for their offensive line issues. They need someone that can come in right away and protect Patrick Mahomes, whether he's a tackle or a guard. I think Oregon offensive lineman Josh Connerly just makes so much sense for the Chiefs here. He is just such a safe player, if you ask me. His tape against some of the best pass rushers in the world, even like Abdul Carter, was really impressive. Is he as big as Calvin Banks or as athletic as Josh Simmons or Armin Membu? No. But he's a really high floor player. He's a poor man's. If you don't get Will Campbell in this draft and you want a safe offensive lineman, I think Josh Connerly is your guy. And then, again, the Eagles traded up from 32 to 21 to go get Walter Nolan. The Steelers trade down because they know they have a good chance of getting their guy at quarterback at pick 32. Still get that 5th-year option, keeping the quarterback within day 1 of the draft. It's Alabama quarterback Jalen Milroe. They bet on the crazy upside of Milroe. It is such a gamble. This is very reminiscent of Anthony Richardson in 2023. I think the Steelers are going to bet on Milroe's traits. He can sit on the bench and not play this year because I think Aaron Rodgers is going to be their starting quarterback. Milroe can be the guy maybe in 2026 or maybe in 2027. Maybe this is a long-term development plan for Pittsburgh, but they got to take another chance on a prospect that's at the end of day 1 because they're always a 9-8 football team. And it didn't work with Kenny Pickett, but that was the right approach. Like, you got to take swings at those kind of prospects when you're a team caught in this purgatory like Pittsburgh. You still got to try. And Milroe, for a 32nd overall value, like that says his traits are as good as you're going to do, especially in a weak class like this at the quarterback position for that spot. All right, so there you have it. Picks 1 through 32. Tell me what you liked about the mock. Tell me what you hated about the mock at DiBiase LOE on X or at Locked on Birds. Thanks so much for making us your first listen each and every day. That'll do it for another year of Mock Draft Monday. As always, Louie DiBiase signing off. Thanks as always for downloading, watching, and listening. And let's go Birds. Fly, Eagles, fly.